We're going to talk about a trap that I see you fall into. I see this happen all the time with women in their 40s and 50s, and it's starting to worry me. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to try to keep this a little bit light, but I want to talk about something that is a concern of mine lately. And it's not something about like how you're not trying hard enough or, not doing enough or not putting in the effort or not caring. Actually, it's kind of the opposite of that, really, because what I'm finding, and this is a pattern after years and years of working with women in their 40s and 50s, what I'm finding is that women like you are trying lots of things. Keto, intermittent fasting, tracking macros, lifting more weights, adding in more cardio, adding in supplements, trying hormone therapy, right? GLP-1 medications, trying some women are telling me that they've tried peptides. And here's the thing. None of those things are inherently bad or wrong. In fact, some of them can be incredibly helpful. You've heard me talk, if you've listened to this podcast, you've heard me talk about some of those things that I've actually added into a structure with some of the women that I work with who are my paid clients, right? But the pattern that I see over and over and over again is that women are like stacking these interventions one on top of the other without stopping to ask much about what's really important. And that is the question of what is actually happening in my body right now. What is actually happening in my body right now? Because tools change systems, right? And when you start adding in tools without understanding the system and the impact that those tools are having on the system, the influence that they're having on that system, then things can get really messy really quickly. And more is not always better. And actually, things that should help can harm. So let me explain a little bit more. Women will reach out to me and we'll have a conversation. She'll tell me she's tried everything. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, keto, tracking macros, upping protein, lifting weights, walking every day, going to Pilates, adding in HIIT workouts or CrossFit. I mean, taking supplements that somebody's recommended online and then adding in more supplements, going on hormone replacement therapy, considering or even using some GLP-1 medications. And so it's not an exaggeration. When women tell me I've tried it all, oftentimes they've tried it all. And I get that. Like I was the queen of new diets in the 90s. I mean, heavy, heavy, heavy in the 90s. So I totally understand why you do that. And what happens is they're not getting any results. And she's totally confused. If you can hear Gunnar barking in the background, I so apologize, but I am not going to completely re-record this episode. um, okay, squirrel back to my point. All of that leaves you feeling confused. She's doing the things that should be helping, and yet her body and her mind still feels like off somehow. She's not losing the weight. Her energy sucks. Her sleep is terrible. Her body composition is not changing, and she feels like it should be. And so the instinct is, okay, what's the next thing I need to try? Because this isn't working. I need to try the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And it's not that women are being careless. You are not out there looking to just haphazardly try a bunch of shit and you're careless with your health. What is actually happening is a result of really smart women like you who are out there searching for information. So you're researching, you're reading, you're listening to podcast episodes like this one, and you're hearing about tools that maybe your friends are using or your coworkers are using. And so you're trying to apply those things to your own situation in your own body. And the problem is that midlife physiology is not simple and it's not the same for everyone. And it's dang sure different from the physiology we had in our 20s and our 30s. In your 20s or 30s, you could change one thing, cut calories, count fat grams, run a whole bunch, or exercise, do some kind of a detox or whatever, and your body would typically respond because our body and our metabolisms at that point were still flexible enough with that youth to get some response for pulling one trigger, right? Once you're in your 40s and 50s, things become more complex. They become more layered, if you will. Your hormones are shifting. And so the signals that your body gets changes. Your stress chemistry changes. How your body responds to stress changes. Our inflammation patterns change. Recovery capacity, our sleep architecture, all of those things shift. And those changes, those shifts influence our metabolism in ways that most women have never even thought about looking at. So when something kind of stops working, it doesn't necessarily mean that you need to add the next thing. You need to add another tool. It often means that the system underneath those tools are what needs to be looked at and addressed. It's more of a foundational sort of root cause situation, and it's never going to be solved by treating just the symptoms or looking at just the result of what's happening. So this is where, I need to be super clear about something too. Again, I say this over and over, but I want to be like really, really, I want to emphasize this. None of these tools that I'm talking about are inherently bad. I do not think GLP-1 medications, for example, are bad. In fact, if you listen to my podcast episode last week, you'll hear about how they are super powerful metabolic levers when they're used properly. And there's a lot that goes into, like, I'll put air quotes around properly because there's a lot that goes into that. As I have gotten more and more educated and I've gotten certified in peptides, I understand how powerful peptides can be for recovery, for neurological struggles that we're having now and potentially in the future. Inflammation. There's just a host of things, situations that peptides can support and improve when they're used strategically by someone who's getting guidance by an expert who knows how to do that, right? Hormone therapy, that's something that can be incredibly helpful. It's another example, but for the right women at the right time. So the problem isn't the tools. The problem is this random intervention. The problem is when we go out researching and we learn about something and then we try to add that in, or we switch from what we were doing and we try this other new thing that we heard about, we're layering tools in on a body that's not being properly supported. And then that ends up feeling like nothing works consistently, frankly, because it's not working, right? And that can be incredibly frustrating. It is incredibly frustrating. I talk to women every day who are like beyond frustrated. They're like, I have lost my last freaking nerve over this. The thing is, midlife actually requires something different. And I'm not trying to be vague about that or like secretive. That different, again, air quotes, is often different for every woman that I work with. But what is the same about all of those situations is that to solve the problems and the struggles that you're dealing with in midlife requires a much more layered way of thinking about the issue. So instead of asking, for example, what should I try next? The better question is actually, what's happening in my body right now? Is inflammation driving resistance to progress? Where is my weight resistance stemming from? In other words, what the hell is keeping the scale from moving? Is stress chemistry interfering with my sleep and my recovery? Is muscle mass declining in a way that is impacting my metabolism and keeping me from losing weight, is some way that my hormones are signaling negatively impacting my sleep patterns or disrupting my sleep. Because once you understand the system component, right? You know what you're working with, then you can look at it in a much more analytical, strategic way. The strategy that you need to implement can become much clearer. And quite frankly, I don't want to work myself out of a job, but sometimes the answer can actually be a lot simpler than women expect. I have clients tell me all the time, I thought I was doing everything right. I was exercising. I knew about healthy eating. I was eating healthy, but somehow I wasn't getting any results at all. And then I come into work with you, Lori, and they tell me the way you put things together made the puzzle whole, and I actually got results. So it's not that what you're doing is all wrong. It's that you have to strategically layer or put the puzzle pieces together, whatever analogy makes sense in your brain. But the pieces all have to be put together in a comprehensive strategy that is right for you. And even more important, or as important as that, then you have to know when to move the layers or how to relayer the strategy as your body responds. You cannot, for example, start with one strategy that is, even if it's the right strategy, even if it's the right combination of strategies for as a plan for you, you cannot put that plan together and then continue with that same exact plan and expect to consistently continue to get progress and reach your ultimate goals and get there in a way that you maintain that health and weight loss result. Because as your body changes, as the system changes, or as the systems change, the strategy has to be adjusted too. And that is one of the reasons that I do not sell quote unquote DIY kinds of programs. I never give a woman a plan and go, here, go off and do it by yourself, because that plan put together with all of those system or those strategies has to be monitored and adjusted so that she can ultimately get to her result and get there in a way that's healthy and will last. Now, a little bit of a tangent here. I sometimes help women who have really minor kinds of issues going on. They're not super complicated. And I can work with them in one, for example, consultation session, and I can send them off with a plan and they make progress. But I'm talking about in general, the women who come to me, it's much more complicated than that. Women who want to lose, 20 pounds or 30 or 40 or 50 or 100 pounds even. Women who have a long storied history of weight struggles, or women who in the last maybe 2 to 5 years, things have really drastically changed for them and they've been trying lots of things and their struggles they're just not getting anywhere. With those women, that strategy has to be specific. It has to be put together in a comprehensive plan, and then it has to be monitored and adjusted as your body changes so that you get what ultimately what every woman tells me they want is, I want to lose the weight, but I want to lose it in a healthy way and I want to keep it off. To get to that result, it takes monitoring and adjusting of that strategy. So that's the key difference. It's that the decisions about what to use in terms of a tool, in terms of strategies, that's made very strategically, and it's not made just out of reaction. Oh, I'm going to try this. It didn't work after 3 weeks, and now I'm going to try this other thing. That's reactively responding to a situation that's much more complex, and you'll never ever get the results that you want doing it that way. And this shift in thinking, this is something that took me a very, very long time to shift in my own thinking, because I treated my body the same way as I'm describing that all these women who come to me treat their body. I spent years, years and years doing exactly what I'm saying doesn't work. And so this shift in thinking was something that I had to come to through my own personal and professional experience. And it's actually what led me to develop my metabolic rewire system, my program that I work with women initially in the first 12 weeks that we work together. And it's another shift that led me to create the precision pathway within that rewire system. Because after working with women for years and years, what I realized is that many of them were not failing because they lacked discipline. They were failing because they were applying these random solutions and they needed a more precise, comprehensive combination of strategies to make a comprehensive plan, right? But then beyond that, over the last, I'd say 2 to 3 years, I came to understand that for other women, for some of the women who come to me in that situation, there is yet another subset of those women who need even more precise strategy. And so the precision pathway is what was born from that. And my learning and, getting, like I said, educated and certified in so many new advancements and tools that we have. So we don't just look at food and fitness, for example. We look at, if you work with me, we're going to look at the metabolic system as a whole. We're going to look at recovery and stress patterns and inflammation and sleep and body composition. And we're going to look even deeper if needed. And there are different indicators that I know to look for. And in some of those situations, and if it's appropriate for you, we may incorporate tools like certain peptides or GLP-1 medications. Those tools are never the starting point, but they're definitely a possibility to be part of a structured strategy that is overall designed to support your body and your mind. It's not to override anything. It is designed in a way, and I don't go back and listen to last week's episode on GLP-1s. I can't remember the title of it right offhand, but go back and I go into a lot more detail about peptides and GLP-1s. But what I will say here, in case you haven't listened to that, is the way those work are that they trigger what used to happen naturally in your system. And now, for a number of reasons, those triggers, those signals are broken. And so the peptide, including GLP-1s, and there's a variety of different kinds. Again, go back and listen to last week's episode. But those peptides, that whole family of different types of peptides, in a nutshell, what they're designed to do is to help your body to trigger what naturally should be occurring. Okay. That is one of the in a very simplified way, that is one of the biggest and main differences between peptides and big pharmaceutical kinds of medications. And I'll leave it at that. Again, go back and listen to last week's episode if you haven't. And so, overall, let me kind of bring this to a close. If you've been listening to this or any of my other episodes and you've been thinking this sounds a lot like me, what you're talking about, Lori, sounds a lot like what's going on with me, and you've been doing things that should be working, that's the key. If you feel like you're doing things that should be working, or at least they should not have you continuing to feel worse and gain more weight, so your body still feels resistant. And I'm not talking about you being on perfect with nutrition. I'm saying if you're like most women I talk to and you are sitting there thinking I eat pretty well. I am not sitting on the couch eating bags of chips or sleeves of Oreos every night. I am really doing things that should have me at least stabilized on the scale, at least having the energy during the day. I should be able to get through my day without hitting the door and feeling like I could hit the freaking bed right now. If you're doing some of those things and your body is still not responding, the question is probably not what should I add in and try next. It's not about another supplement. It's not about another cream or another detox or even another diet plan. The question at that point is usually, what is happening in my body? What is happening on the systematic level in my body? Having that conversation is much more useful than what supplement should I take? And if you want to talk through that with me, you can schedule a conversation. We'll talk about your situation specifically, and I'll ask you, like, what kinds of things have you tried? We'll talk about how your body responded to that. We'll talk about what's happening now with what's going on with you. We'll talk about the frustrations and what's made you feel like you're just not having any success at all. And I'll point you in the direction of what might be the next step. I mean, worst case scenario, you walk away from that conversation with a clear understanding of what you should do. But if you don't have the conversation with me, have the conversation with some expert who can guide you in a healthy way, at least help you to take the next step on this journey. I will drop in the show notes. I think it's always in the show notes, a link to my calendar if you want to have a conversation with me. But if nothing else, I hope this episode helps you to kind of step back and take a look at what's going on in the moment and maybe recognize a little bit something, more than the way you were thinking about it before. Like, I hope that you have a little more awareness and recognition of something important, because more is not always better. More effort is not always the answer. More supplements are not always going to improve the situation. More is not always better. Sometimes the answer is really about understanding the system that you're working with and what is the next lever you need to pull to impact that system in a way that's going to give you a little bit more of a result than you were getting previously. So that's what I have for you today. I hope this was helpful. I have been encouraged. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here before I close. I've gotten feedback from several people in the last couple of weeks that you want longer episodes. Don't know why. You want to hear me rattle on, but that's the feedback that I've been getting pretty consistently from a number of different people. So I am trying to make them a little bit more in depth. I'm trying to make them a little more detailed to give you, even more of an expanded understanding of things. Always reach out to me if you have ideas for or topics that you want to hear more about. If you hear me do an episode and you would love a second episode where I go deeper into that topic, or ideas for any other topics, shoot me a message. You can hit me up in the DMs on Instagram. You can Facebook message me. You can email me. But send me a message and let me know your thoughts. I always love hearing from you guys. So thanks for being here. I always appreciate your time. I know that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of podcasts out there that you could listen to. And I appreciate that you've picked this one to spend this time with me. So I will see you right back here next time.